One of the things I like to think I'm especially good at as a professional dungeon master is knowing when to speak and knowing when to stay silent, knowing when to poke and to prod and to push, and knowing when to just sit back and let the players take the spotlight, which to some people might seem like an interesting thing because if I'm the professional and I'm the dungeon master, shouldn't I be doing stuff all the time? And the answer is absolutely not. Absolutely not. And it's a similar thing. In my other line of work, I'm also a coach. I work with people one on one, or I work with small groups. And anyone who works with people in any sort of change work context knows that the most valuable stuff happens when you shut your trap and you just let them either talk through what it is they need to talk through, or they just sit there and just processing what you've just said to them or what they've just experienced, trying to make sense of it. This is very much a case of less is more. There are often times where using more words, saying more things is just the wrong call. And so, in the spirit of that, let's get into the point of this video because I've been asked this question by a couple of people, and I was thinking about this the other day. Uh, as I say, I'm quite good at knowing when to push people, to poke the players, and also when to sit back. Most of my games played virtually and over voice, but not video. So I can hear people, but I can't see people, which can create an interesting little challenge because if you can't see people, that's a lot of data about what the players are doing, how they're feeling, that you're just not getting. And so I was thinking about this. There are plenty of times where everyone just goes silent. I'll say something or something will happen, and then I'll sit there and everything is silent. And silence can mean anything. Silence can mean so many different things. It can mean that someone's dropped out. It could be that the internet is bad, which, yeah, that's a thing that has happened to me, unfortunately. But usually, it's a signal from the players that something is happening, but what? Because the silence could be that they're like mind blown. Oh no, what do we do now? Ah, which is great. Or the silence could be whatever. I don't care. Just can't be bothered to speak. This is so boring. Very different things. And you really want to know which silence you're dealing with. And so I was thinking about this, uh, because with the first silence, where they're like, "Wow," or like, "What do I do now?" You want to respect that silence. You just sit there and let it happen. When they're ready to speak, they'll speak, and it'll be great. But if they're sitting there just going, or what? Like, what is happening? Then you want to jump in and offer something. So the same signal, silence, but two opposite responses. With one silence, you say silent yourself, the other you interrupt it. And I was thinking about this, how do I know which is which? And the first thing that came into my brain was that they sound different. It's like, okay, what? The silences sound different. Yep, okay. They do. They absolutely do. How do I teach that to people? How do I tell people that that's what they should be listening for? Listen for a thinking silence as opposed to a bored silence or a confused silence. That's not useful advice. It's basically on par with just be good at this. So I unpacked this a little bit. What exactly is thinking silence as opposed to checked out silence? And sometimes you can hear it in the breathing, uh, or someone goes to say something and then stops. If you've got some clues like that to work with and you're perceptive and you're emotionally intelligent, then you can probably read the mood that way. Uh, The best advice that I can offer at this stage is how the silence breaks is really the big thing. So, the very first utterance of a sound that someone makes tells you the quality of the silence. So, if someone is speaking with a lot of tension or they're speaking with a complete lack of tension, those are very different signals from the players. This is all unconscious. They're not meaning to signal these things. This is just emerging from how they speak, which you really want to be listening for. And so tension can be good, it can be bad. Uh, that level of like so I'm going to, that can be calmness or it can be boredom. And with practice, you'll get good at hearing the differences between these things. But I do want to offer you something tangible that you can work with, like an actual strategy that you can use. Because again, practice listening to how people sound and what that means about what they're thinking is advice that's sort of on par with just get good at this. And so I like to, among other things, but this is quite shareable, I like to listen for the silences and the sounds that break the silence and match it to what the mood should be. So if something is quite high end, it's supposed to be quite high energy. Let's say it's a really tense battle. Like this encounter is just rough. The you might have miscalculated, or maybe the dice are just working against them, and it's looking like they could lose this. It's looking uh, like a character might drop, and it's also not easy for them to run away. Then you'd expect this to be quite tense, which means that when people talk, they should be able to hear that tension in the voice. And that tension could be excitement. It could be like a little bit of frustration. It could be that there's just like, oh no, I'm really scared that we're going to lose this. All of which is quite appropriate. Uh, if the tension is not there, if they're in the middle of this fight and everything's on the line and they're just like, okay, I'm going to swing my sword at the main bad. That doesn't match. And that suggests that something is going a bit off here. And this applies for all sorts of different contexts. You might be having a bit of a fun party encounter. They're undercover at a masquerade ball, and everything's a bit sort of fun. There's drinks, there's music, there's dancing, and it's supposed to be this social encounter with a little bit of intrigue. And instead, they've just got this bit of tension into how they're talking about things. That again, that does suggest there's a bit of a mismatch here. And this is not a perfect thing. In the case of the tense encounter, that could go either way. If someone is also matching that tension, that could be frustration, which yeah, is pretty good. You want players to be frustrated in that situation to a point. If that frustration gets too excessive, though, if it gets more than what they can handle, they're going to, yeah, it's not going to be good. And so, again, this does come back to being emotionally intelligent, being perceptive, practicing getting as much information as you can from people about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, just by the sounds of their voice. But if you're after something small, something specific to practice, practice getting a sense of what their mood should be, or what you would like it to be, or what the context suggests it is likely to be, and see how well that matches. Now, with some players, that's going to be way easier than others. Some players are very expressive, just naturally as people, or when they're role playing. Some people are a lot more reserved. But there's still going to be differences, and you can still detect this sort of stuff. My point is, if this is a real struggle for you, as in you often miss sarcasm, you often listen to what people say rather than how they say it, you miss a lot of social cues. I'm not saying that you can't do this, but it does make it a lot harder. If this level of social awareness is not something that you're particularly strong in, you can absolutely still be a professional dungeon master. Just know that people's experience is going to be different. You're going to miss moments where you can offer them something more, or you can course correct, you can speed things up when they feel it's a bit slow, you can slow things down when they want to immerse in things. And that's a big part of the game. And so if you are able to offer that to people, you're able to create these amazing experiences for them. This is what people keep coming back to. This is what Dungeons and Dragons is is all about. It's what when people talk about the hobby and their eyes twinkle a little bit, it's either because the dice are telling funny stories or they've had moments like this where they were having a moment and then the game matched that moment and then they matched the game's moment. And so if you're not able to create this for people reliably, then I'd suggest making sure that everything that you do offer is exceptional because you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be good at everything. But this is one of those things. If you're missing something that people really get a lot of value out of, then make sure everything else that you do offer is so good that it makes up for it. Beyond that, I don't really have any advice for you. This is one of those skills that anyone can get better at, and all of us should get better at. This is pretty important because this goes well beyond just dungeon mastery. I hope that's pretty clear for you. If you're able to get more about what people are really thinking and feeling just from their voice, regardless of the words that they use, if you're able to read the silences for what they actually mean, what situations would that not be useful for out in the real world? I like to think of games as, in some way, they're practice for real life. And when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, especially as a dungeon master, there are so many great skills that this helps build within you while you're having just the most ridiculous amount of fun at the same time. No wonder I love this hobby so much.